He is the world's greatest detective, yet almost no one has ever seen his face. A man who can dismantle international criminal organizations from the shadows. A man whose mind operates at speeds most humans can't comprehend. They call him L, but his true name is L Lawliet. In the game of intellect, there are only two types of players: those who think they're the smartest and those who actually are. This is the story of the one man who stood between humanity and a god of death. In the battle of L versus Light, the stakes were not just life and death, they were justice versus absolute control. One had the power of the supernatural, the other had nothing but his mind. And yet, the detective came closer to victory than anyone ever thought possible. We fade into an Interpol meeting room, grim faces, shuffling papers, the case dozens of mysterious, unexplainable deaths of criminals worldwide. No fingerprints, no murder weapons, no evidence, except that every death seemed to happen at the perfect moment. The officials speak in hushed, fearful voices. No one can explain it, but one man speaks up not in person but through a laptop screen, a letter L in Old English font. To understand L, you must first understand his battlefield, unlike Light, who manipulates the world openly once he has the death note. L operates entirely in the realm of uncertainty. His mind thrives in the darkness because it is there that every detail, no matter how small, becomes a weapon. Their game began long before they met in person. Who is L Lawliet? Before he was the world's greatest detective, before he challenged a god of death, L Lawliet was simply a boy in an orphanage. But not just any orphanage, a place built to create the next generation of geniuses. Wami's house, the breeding ground of minds. Wami's house, a private orphanage founded by the inventor and philanthropist Quilish Wami, known to L as Watari. Its mission was not charity, it was preparation. Every child here was trained to think differently, to solve the unsolvable, and L was the brightest among them, the quiet boy in the corner. We see a young L barefoot, small-framed, sitting in a corner while other children play outside. Instead of joining them, he studies a game of chess in progress, then moves the final piece, checkmating an opponent who isn't even there. Even here, among prodigies, L was different. He had no interest in games for fun, only in games that could not be won. While others competed to prove they were the best, L competed against himself, always looking for the flaw, the missed possibility, the alternative no one else saw. Early signs of obsession. From a young age, L developed unusual habits, consuming excessive sweets, sleeping at odd hours, and maintaining a posture most would find unbearable. What appeared to be eccentricity was rooted in obsession. Sweets fueled his brain during marathon thinking sessions. Odd sleeping cycles kept his mind unpredictable even to himself, and that crouched position. It kept his mind in a state of heightened focus, a subconscious signal that it was time to think. Watari's influence. Watari was more than L's guardian. He was his anchor to humanity, the only person L truly trusted. In a life built on deception, misdirection, and suspicion, Watari was the one constant. This relationship would later become critical. By his late teens, L was already solving cases Interpol could not crack. Drug cartels, assassination networks, political corruption, all dismantled from behind a single computer screen. His name, or rather his initial, became both a beacon for justice and a warning to criminals. Yet despite his reputation, no one knew his face. Not the police, not the criminals, not even most of his allies. L understood the first rule of survival in his world. Visibility is vulnerability, the need for control, an extreme need for control in his environment, in his routines, in every variable he allows into his life. This is why he operated in total secrecy. It wasn't paranoia, it was strategy. Every shred of information about himself was potential leverage for his enemies, and L never gave them an opening. This need for control would later define his battle with Light Yagami, a duel between two minds obsessed with shaping reality to fit their vision. L's isolation was not just paranoia. It was a controlled environment, a laboratory for his mind. Free from outside influence, his thoughts remained pure, undistorted by social conventions or emotional attachments. Beneath the quirks, the odd posture, and the endless sweets, was a mind shaped by three forces: isolation, control, and relentless curiosity. He was not driven by fame, power, or even recognition. His motivation was the puzzle itself. The more impossible the problem, the more alive he felt. The world was in panic. Criminals were dying by the hundreds. There was no pattern anyone could see except one. They were all criminals, and they were all judged guilty without trial. Before the police even knew where to begin, L had already drawn his first conclusions. 1. Kira could kill without physical contact. 2. He needed a target's name and face. 3. He was somewhere in Japan. The press conference broadcast. The man claiming to be L speaks directly to the camera. Lind L. Taylor. Kira, I am L, the one in charge of your case. You are evil, and the world's justice will not lose to you. What happened next would become one of the most famous psychological traps in anime history. Within seconds, Lind L collapses on live television, dead from a heart attack. Gasps and screams fill the broadcast. The reveal. The broadcast changes the camera and now shows a shadowy figure represented only by the letter L. L's voice. Kira, I had to test this just now. That man was not me. He was an inmate scheduled for execution, and by killing him, you have confirmed two things. One, you can kill from a distance. Two, you are in the Kanto region of Japan. In a single move, L had achieved what no one else could. He had made Kira reveal both his ability and his location. Most detectives would have spent months, maybe years, just trying to confirm those details. L did it in minutes. This wasn't just deduction, it was provocation. L knew Kira's psychology would not allow him to ignore a public challenge. He had read his opponent's ego and used it against him. Light Yagami believed himself to be the most intelligent person alive, but in this moment, he was already playing L's game. And that's the difference between them. Light reacts, L predicts. L's thinking was proactive, he made moves that forced his opponent to reveal themselves. Light's thinking was reactive, his brilliance was in adapting to traps after they were sprung. Without the Death Note, Light's ability to manipulate events would have been drastically limited. L's skill set, however, required no supernatural crutch. Remove the Death Note from the equation, and the balance shifts completely. Light's genius still shines, but without instant, untraceable execution, he loses his primary advantage. L's network, deductive skills, and ability to manipulate circumstances would overwhelm Light in the long run. L's greatest strength was his deep understanding of human psychology. Light Yagami was a genius with a god's weapon. L Lawliet was a genius with nothing but his mind. And still, he came closer to victory than anyone else. That is why, on pure intellect alone, L was the smarter man. L's fall was not a failure of intellect, it was a reminder that even the sharpest mind cannot account for every unknown variable. And yet, the tragedy is not that L died, but that he died knowing exactly who Kira was and being unable to prove it. L Lawliet may have fallen, but the fight against Kira did not end with him. His legacy lived on in minds shaped by his teachings, in methods refined by his example, and in the unshakable belief that justice could prevail. Light Yagami won the war, but not because he was the smarter man. He won because he held a weapon so powerful it could bend the rules of the game itself. Strip away the Death Note, and the match between these two minds tells a different story. L's strength lay in obsession. He could sit for hours, days, even weeks, focusing entirely on a problem without letting pride cloud his judgment. Light, for all his genius, could not resist the pull of his own ego. Every risk he took, from public killings to taunting the police, stemmed from a need to prove his superiority. L's approach was patient and surgical. He never acted without purpose, while Light sometimes acted out of vanity. That difference in self-control is the first mark of a sharper mind. L thrived on uncertainty. When a plan failed, he adapted instantly, pivoting to a new angle without hesitation. Light's plans were brilliant, but brittle. The moment his carefully crafted scenarios encountered unexpected variables, his first instinct was to manipulate others to cover his tracks, a reactive move, not a proactive one. L built his cases on evidence or created controlled scenarios to obtain it. Light relied heavily on assumptions, confident they were correct because they came from his own mind. This is why L was able to corner Kira into revealing himself multiple times without the Death Note's help, while Light without the note could never have found L. L was not just a detective, he was a psychological predator. He understood that breaking an opponent's mind was often more effective than outthinking them on paper. The tennis match, the handcuff gambit, the subtle verbal traps, each was designed to make Light show something he didn't want to show. Light's victory was not proof of superior intellect, it was the result of an overwhelming external advantage. The Death Note tilted the match in his favor, making true comparison impossible in the final score, but in a battle fought with equal tools, no divine weapon and no supernatural interference, L Lawliet would have been the one standing at the end. For L and Light, the battle was never just about evidence. It was about control, the control of perception, suspicion, and tempo. Every move was a conversation, every conversation a test, and every test a chance to unbalance the other. L and Light were not just two great minds in conflict, they were two visions of justice colliding at full force. Every move they made was as much about proving their worldview as it was about catching or evading a killer. To Light Yagami, justice was the cleansing fire that burned away evil. He saw crime as a disease, and himself as the surgeon or executioner willing to cut out the infected parts of society. His morality was utilitarian, the ends justified the means. If millions lived in fear and a few thousand died, the world would still be better in his eyes. To L, justice was not about outcomes, it was about the integrity of the process. If you cut corners to enforce justice, you destroyed its legitimacy. Killing without trial was not justice, it was tyranny, even if the victims were guilty. For L, the rule of law mattered more than the immediate removal of criminals. Light's belief belief in decisive absolute action meant he was willing to act alone, without oversight. L's belief in verification and fairness meant he relied on methodical evidence collection even if it slowed him down. Where Light favored fast, irreversible moves, L preferred slower layered traps because they preserved the truth, not just the win. Despite their opposite worldviews, Light and L were reflections of each other. Both were brilliant, both obsessive, both convinced they were the only ones capable of defining justice. Their duel wasn't just mind against mind, it was mirror against mirror, each reflecting the other's flaws and strengths back at them. In the end, ideology drove every calculation, every risk, every word. And perhaps it was ideology, not intellect, that determined who would fall first. L Lawliet is more than a brilliant detective. He is a symbol of relentless curiosity, the power of intellect, and the complexity of justice. His story challenges us to reconsider what it means to be smart, to be fair, and to seek truth. Intelligence is multifaceted. L shows us that intelligence isn't just raw knowledge or quick answers. It's patience, emotional control, adaptability, and the courage to face uncertainty. His quirks and flaws remind us that genius often comes wrapped in eccentricity. Justice requires process, not just outcomes. L's commitment to due process reminds us that justice must be earned through fairness and evidence. Quick judgments and absolute power risk becoming tyranny even with the best intentions. The importance of moral reflection. The rivalry between L and Light teaches us the danger of unchecked ideology. Intelligence without moral reflection can lead to devastating consequences. L's skepticism and ethical consistency serve as a beacon in murky moral waters. L reminds us that life's questions rarely have simple answers. Intelligence means embracing complexity and seeking truth with humility. L Lawliet's story is a testament to the power of the mind and the spirit, a legacy of logic, justice, and humanity forever etched into the fabric of storytelling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe.